Well, it's about finally here. We have waited weeks for this NBA Finals to finally come into our living rooms. And coming into your living room now, Dan Greenberg from Barstool Sports, like the voice on the Boston Celtics, internet or anywhere. Greenie is like the authority on the Boston Celtics. So since this has become a Celtics show, I felt inclined to bring him in. And Greenie, we have been waiting now a week for the Mavs, a week and a half for the Celtics to finally get this thing underway. What have you been doing with your life? Like, this is full on playoff mode, and then all of a sudden you get a break.
I know. I've slowly been losing my mind, as I think everybody else has been. I've been making a lot of bread.
The bread looks great, by the way.
On sourdough kick.
It looks fantastic.
So, I need them to play again because I can't keep eating all these loaves of bread. So I've been watching highlights, playing 2K. I just watched the 2008 championship DVD the other night.
Okay. So was that the first time?
I'm playing. Oh, go ahead.
Was that the first time this postseason you've watched the DVD? Because I try to wait till a finals run to do it.
Not only is it the first time, but I had never watched it. It was in its plastic this whole time. And I said to myself, we need extra finals juju. So I ripped it out of the plastic, put it into my PlayStation, and finally watched it. So it was on my shelf as memorabilia, but listen, after 2022 and I didn't watch it, I felt personally responsible this time around. So I watched that, but with 2 days to go, I'm itching like crazy. I need it to be Thursday night.
First off, that's a special moment that you have broken out the DVD.
Yeah,
that's huge. Please confirm
that
it's
right
out
here.
Oh,
this
yeah.
One. I don't know if you can see it. This guy right here. I finally busted it open. So.
Oh, my gosh. I don't think, honestly, now that you say it, I don't know that I watched it before the run 2 years ago because, we lived it. It's like that at the end of Miracle. Yeah. Herb Brooks died in principal photography. He lived it. That's how I felt about the Celtics championship. But I watched it 2 years ago, and I was like, got to wait till the finals. Because you remember in 22, it was it's kind of like what the Mavs are going on right now in terms of 5 months of momentum. Everything was building, and the Bruins weren't that great, and the Red Sox weren't that great. So it was Celtics wave coming through, and I was like, wait till the finals, watch it during the finals. So maybe I won't this year, maybe I won't. But that's a big moment, and I don't know about you, but I know you've done a lot of baking and stuff. But I cannot fall asleep. At night, I've been thinking about this series. Every fourth thought is about this series.
Oh yeah, I'd say I tweeted this out. I think it was yesterday. All the days just blend together at this point.
Really,
but
truly.
I probably whisper to myself 4 more 50 times a day. It's all I think about. It has completely consumed. As soon as the playoffs start, your life is consumed by 16 wins. But once you get to the final 4 that you need, it's unlike anything. Unless you've lived it, you can't really describe it. And I think, in 2022, when they broke through and got over the hump, it was, like you said, kind of like the Mavs, where it's okay, they got through the conference finals hurdle. There's a little bit happy to be there. If you win, it'll be incredible. But you're more on the trending upward trajectory.
Yeah.
Now it's been win a title or your season is a colossal choke job since October.
Yeah.
So now it's a completely different level of stress, anticipation. You just sit in your bed and stare at your ceiling and you're just holy crap, we are 4 wins away from being one of the greatest assembled teams in NBA history. It's insane.
I mean, that is the perfect way to put it, because I was going to ask you that. It's not 22 was so exciting because of what we just talked about, the midseason turnaround, some classic series, back-to-back 7-gamers, and they hadn't been to the finals in 12 years. And it was finally this group is breaking through. Of course, we knew it was a big hurdle with Golden State, but I think the Celtics matched up with them well and obviously had that series kind of where they wanted it through 3 games. And so that was kind of a whole nother thing, whereas you said it last year and specifically this year, it is win or bust. It's almost like, I don't want to say not fun, because it is fun. You're in the NBA Finals, but there's
it's
so
not
much
fun.
pressure.
It's awful. It's
well,
fun.
yeah,
It's
as a
hell.
fan,
It's absolute hell.
yeah, especially with this build-up too. It's like it's just this intrusive thoughts just keep coming in. And I was thinking the other day of like you and I have both kind of grown up in the glory days of Boston sports, and I don't think I can remember a can't lose series like this. Like whenever the Patriots were in the Super Bowl, it was going to be a massive story if they lost, right? Like it was the nation would rejoice if they lost. So there was certainly pressure in that, and coming from someone who lives outside of Massachusetts now, the bragging rights thing is a big deal. But this feels like the most pressure packed I've ever felt it. Is that crazy to say?
I mean, definitely for the Celtics since the 08, since the first, iteration of this big three idea.
And having the Lakers there certainly helped,
Right, right. I mean, that obviously is always going to add to it. I look at this run as what makes this different compared to 2022 is like, when you look at the course of NBA champions, there's always the playoff scars, right? You need to go through pain before you reach the top of the mountain. Luka right now and the Mavs are experiencing that 2022 Celtics run. Like if they lose the finals, it'll be brutal for them. And but that will just be part of their journey to the top of the mountain. The Celtics have already gone through that. They've had the heartbreak. They've had the losses at home in Game 7. They've watched a team celebrate a title on their home floor. Now is their opportunity, as their two best players are inching closer to their NBA prime years. This is when NBA history says, okay, if you are going to break through and win a title, you have to go through the pain. You have to have guys that are right around this 26 through 28 range. You need an all-NBA top 5 guy. You need a dominant point differential.
Yep.
Like every box, the Celtics have checked every box, and this is the final test. So it's like, if they still can't do it after everything that they've done, I mean, I'm probably not going to be around much longer. Like that'll be it for me. But I mean, you just hope that they understand, like, this is their time to finish the job. And what's at stake? I mean, you have legacy. I mean, what this does for the Tatum and Brown Celtics legacy is insane. The conversations you now then start to need to have as Jayson Tatum as a player and everything he's accomplished before 27 is big time, like all time discussions that I don't think people are necessarily ready to have. So it's like they have so much to gain and so much to lose. I'm going to be sick every dribble. I'm going to be losing my mind.
Golly, you're speaking my truth right now for sure. Like I thought about the 08 team, because obviously for me that's the only thing I can compare it to winning the championship. And obviously that was a legacy team, right? 3 Hall of Famers who needed that validation and to win the NBA title. And I think about Paul Pierce specifically, lifetime Celtic, and I'm like, man, he deserved that title so bad. Like he deserved it for all that he had gone through. And I kind of feel the same way about Tatum. And then I sit back and think, like, Tatum's like 7 or 8 years younger than Paul Pierce was there. I guess 6 or 7 years younger. Like, and we feel like he's already gone through that. And it, like you said, like it is his time. And I don't know. We've had some breaking news right before we've gone on the air. We've got some Porzingis stuff that we'll talk about. But I don't know if you saw this, that there is an arrest warrant out for Jayson Tatum because he did not tell Jaylen Brown how much he appreciated him yesterday. So thoughts on that, Greenie, and his very muted celebration.
I'm excited for that first take segment that I'm sure we'll get about that.
It's unbelievable. So it's, first off, this was a disgrace to the name Greenie because it was Greenberg who put it up, and like,
no relation, by the way. I do not claim.
Disavow.
I'm rebuking that, Greenberg. We are not the same.
Disavow. Huge disavow. And like they show the video too, and I had remembered the point where they're kind of like all, putting their hands on Jaylen and everything, but I was like, I don't remember Tatum. Was he like sulking in the background of this? And no, he's like just out of reach with a giant grin on his face. And like credit to ESPN,
the
they
best
put in
part-
Udonis Haslem, who's the only one who's not going to say, "What the hell are you talking about, Greenie?" He's like, "Yeah, no, I think you're right." And I'm like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, and the
going
best
on?
part is when they spotlit him, they highlighted just him, and as they're saying the words, oh, he just didn't look as happy as everybody else, is when he had the biggest. So it was like some North Korean propaganda. It's
Truly,
like you
yes.
are openly gaslighting me. I can see with my own eyes what is happening, and you are telling me the opposite, let alone the guy who, had certain remarks to say about Bill Russell is the guy telling me that Tatum isn't happy. It was as textbook gaslighting as you're going to find.
It's crazy. And, I mean, obviously, we're all, as Celtics fans, we're all sick of this, man. Like, Jaylen and Jayson, they like each other. They might not be the best of friends, but, like, who cares? They like each other, and they're coexisting very well, and we're seeing it year by year. So you talk about the legacy talk that we'll be able to have if they win the series, but just as someone who's now been through it for, 7 years now, how sick are you of that narrative?
Part of me is very sick of it. And as I've gotten older, I've tried to become less and less triggered. I feel like this break between the finals has been a bit of a relapse for me, just because we're getting it from all angles.
Everywhere.
But then the other part of me almost looks at it as a sign of respect, right? Like, they don't do this for players that aren't worthy of being in this upper echelon. Like, we heard it with LeBron. You hear it with Steph. You hear it with KD, you heard it with Giannis. Like, if this is just the requirement of these truly elite of the elite players that, you heard it with Jokic, like, you have to win for it to stop. And I don't think you should run from that standard, but I also think you can do both, right? You can hold players to this extremely high standard and be critical, and then also not blatantly lie on television to my face when I can see, like, there's somewhere has to be a medium of it. But I think these networks know that to get ratings, just mention Tatum, rile up Celtics fans, because we're going to be defensive about it. And the only way it stops forever is winning. And then once they win, even if you want to discredit that by saying it was an easy run or they didn't play anybody, I don't care. I'm still looking at an 18th championship banner. Yeah. So it's like all that stuff just bounces off on you. But until you win, it's like you don't truly have a trump card without a title.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because I looked at the top, someone had did a listicle a couple years ago of the top 10, actually it was last year because it included the Nuggets, top 10 easiest roads to the finals. And 9 of the 10 teams were champions. The only one that wasn't was the 84 Lakers, who lost Game 7 at the Boston Garden. So it's like all were within one win of a championship. And the easiest by far was 87 Lakers, who, again, beat the Celtics. No Kevin McHale in that series. But it was like that. We remember that as one of the best teams ever. Like, Magic and Worthy and Kareem. So, like, that makes sense. So looking at this series specifically, and I was on record as not wanting to play Dallas at all because of just being scared of the Kyrie factor. But honestly, they probably match up a little bit better with Dallas than they did with Minnesota. And I think the big reasons why is Porzingis. And he has news recently, looks like he's ready to go for Game 1 of the finals. And he obviously is a huge mismatch for anybody, but I think specifically for this Dallas team, which is playing good enough defense in the playoffs. How big a factor is Porzingis in this series?
It's everything. I mean, I think people have forgotten, because it's been 5.5 weeks. He is the cheat code. He is what makes the Celtics, in theory, scheme-proof, right? Because if you compare it to just what the Mavs played in Minnesota, they could pack the paint. They could keep their big man around the rim, because Rudy Gobert was going to be in the paint. He's not a stretch big. Now you eliminate one of the biggest advantages that the Mavs had in that Wolves series. Now they can no longer pack the paint, sag off shooters, and close off driving lanes, which is the foundation of the Celtics' success. It's why they play 5 out. It's why they traded for Porzingis, because if your rim protection now has to respect a 35-foot shooter, well, now you're leaving your wing defenders on an island against 2 players that you are not going to be able to stay in front of. And if you can't keep the Celtics' 2 best players out of the paint, you're not going to win because the driving kick game is there. If you don't hedge and cheat off shooters, they're going to just finish over you at the rim. And the other part that is Porzingis' value is now you are well more equipped to survive the non-Jayson Tatum minutes. I think this series ultimately is going to come down to, can the Mavs survive the non-Luka minutes, and can the Celtics now survive the non-Tatum minutes? Well, you are reintroducing a Jaylen Brown Porzingis two-man game that was virtually unstoppable in those 3-4 minute shifts before Tatum would come back to start the second quarter. So that element alone is such an important factor that they did not have in any of their previous playoff runs. And that's where you would see, okay, Tatum comes off the floor, the Pacers go on a 10-2 run.
Yeah.
If you're eliminating that and you can at least be neutral, you're not going to lose the Tatum minutes with Porzingis and everybody on the floor. So it's about maximizing the time he's not on the floor, and you're just more prepared to do that. I don't know if the Mavs are going to be able to be as successful in the non-Luka minutes, because the same way, when Luka's on the floor, you're not stopping Luka. He's an animal. He's a tank. Like, he's going to get what he's going to get. It's if the Mavs now only can rely on Kyrie and the bench as opposed to now Jaylen and Porzingis and the bench, that's a huge advantage.
Big time, because we did see that kind of slip a little bit in the Indiana series, and I think that's probably why it was close. Was the non-Tatum minutes and the secondary point guard minutes weren't terrific for the Celtics, and I don't think, especially with Porzingis in there, I don't think you lose either of those in this series, which is, like you said, I mean, a huge plus. And I do want to get into the Kyrie thing a little bit. Now, I think maybe I'm in the minority here because he will get a tough treatment in Boston. He will, but it feels like most of the Celtics fan base is actually kind of just like moved on from this. It's been 5 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, he got everything when he was in Boston, and he was like treated like a hero, and we were ready for him to lead the franchise. And it obviously doesn't end well. And there was a lot of bad blood. I still am not a huge fan of the guy, but like, it's been 5 years. Both teams are very different. Like, he was in New York. Now he's in Dallas. Like, what do we have against Dallas, right? And so the Kyrie factor in this series is there still part of you that's like, man, just don't piss this guy off, please?
I mean, always, because when he's on, he's, he could get you 50. But what's important to remember, and I don't know, I don't want to speak, if you're someone who wants to hate the guy and boo him like crazy, like, don't be a dick, but like go nuts. Right.
And I still get it. Like, if you're still mad, I understand. Like, and if I was at the game, probably liquored up, I wouldn't be a dick, but I'd be booing him.
At the same time, like, not only has it been 5 years, but they've also swept him in a playoff series.
So and won the last 10 against him. Yeah.
Right. So it's like, I don't have, my biggest gripe for him wasn't the, I promise I'll stay, all that. It wasn't the lying, any of that. It was the fact that he openly quit in the Milwaukee series
for
in 2019. Like, he self-sabotaged that. I care way more about that than what he said preseason to a crowd about staying, right? I care that he's going up to Lucky and stomping on Lucky. Like, those are the things that rile me up. But at the same time, it's like the Celtics are so close to a championship that this is like their final boss of distraction. If you can just keep your mental focus and not worry about that, just like you did in the Brooklyn series, it should be fine. I think, we've seen him in that Brooklyn series. I think there were games where he had, 37, 36. Like, he was awesome. So he's capable of it. He's going to be mature about it. He's going to be ready to be, to quiet the garden. So there is the protection. And also, I don't think you should overlook, Luka's going to be motivated to have his back. So that's a factor as well. So I just think they've been so good at just blocking out the noise and staying focused since October. That's going to be the hurdle, and that's what's going to matter in this series is like you've already beat him in a playoff series. You know how you have to play against him. You can exploit him on the defensive end. Focus on that as opposed to all the baloney and let the media do that.
And Luka does love playing on the road. Man, that is kind of fun to watch when it's not your team out there. But looking at, I've got two more quick ones for you. It's fun. It is fun, just not anymore. Two more quick ones for you. First thing being, I want to flash it back to last year. And I think if the Celtics get swept in that series against Miami last year, there's even more change than there was in the offseason. But obviously they push it to 7, and Wick, whether he said this for real or not, has come out on camera and said, I told Brad we can't run it back. We need to make some changes. And I don't know. Look, owners are notorious at doing stuff like that. I mean, I love Bob Kraft, but he's like the king of saying stuff like that. Might have happened, right? All right, so this is the most pressure-packed it's been for the Celtics to win a title, I think. And like Twitter will go nuts if they don't, which is got to count for something. So if the Celtics have a classic 7-game series, they lose by 2 points, and they don't win the title, are you okay, having one of the great net rating teams of all time and just running it back next year?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, this is the team, at least for the next 2 to 3. I think you could see, we'll have to see what happens with I think Hauser has a team option. I think, you could see they have to make decisions on Cornette and Tillman, right? Like the minimum fringe pieces. Now that they're a second apron team, you might have to navigate that, a certain way. But in terms of their top 7 and 8, I think this is it. There's, they made the moves to contend and get over the hump. They're right there. I honestly think they would have been right there had they just brought the same team back. I mean, people forget.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
This team was, not in contention as constructed. I just think, they've invested. They gave Porzingis his extension, Holiday his extension. I don't think you're trading either of the Jays as they're about to enter their prime years, their NBA prime years. I don't think you're firing Mazzulla, as he's clearly shown he's capable of running this team. So it's like sometimes you have to just take another swing and address your fringe around the edges of your roster. But if someone's going to offer you a player at a position of need that you can move without having to trade a top 8 guy, I have no doubt that Brad will do it. Like if you can bring in a different wing, but it costs you Peyton Pritchard, I don't think Brad turns that deal down. But if it comes he's not trading Derek White, he's not trading Holiday, he's not trading Porzingis. So the nucleus, I think, is here to stay.
And that is refreshing because the NBA obviously is a very year-to-year, let's see what other moves we need to do. We can't run it back type of league. But I seem to be in the same boat. They might not win the title because there's a reason why they roll the basketballs out there, but this is as perfectly constructed a roster in today's NBA, I think, as you can get. So,
right. I mean, they had the 4th highest differential ever.
Yeah.
They're 76-20. It's like you did what you had to do to put yourself in a position to win.
And one team who has entered the NBA Finals with 20 or less losses has not won the series. So, Greenie, before we go, because I've kept you too long here, I've got to ask you, I've got to put you on the spot. Prediction on the series.
I'm going to say Celts in 6.
Celts in 6, which means, of course, Greenie, that I will be selling a kidney so that I can get $1,300 to get in the American Airlines Center, drive up, and see the Celtics do it. We might need to GoFundMe
as someone who was in college, as someone who was in college and was not able to be in Boston when they won in 2008, it's to this day my biggest lifelong regret of just not being in where they were when they won it. Well, so I would advise sell your kidney.
Well, if you come down to Dallas, if Big Daddy Dave throws out some money for you to come down to Dallas, we'll find a place for you to stay. All right.
Right on. Appreciate it.
Greenie, thank you so much for joining the program. And this went well enough that I think you might be tied down. We might have to have you back sometime during the series.
Listen, if they keep winning, I will come. I'm very superstitious right now. So we did this. I had a game 1.
All right.
If they win game 1, you got me for game 2. You got me for game 3, and so forth.
We're gonna start recording this to nobody on a Saturday. It's not gonna go anywhere, but you will have done it, so it should still work. Greenie, thanks so much again. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys, have a good one.
are Rogue Media Sports.